Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paolo Daniele. I'm the Director of Professional Development and Career Preparation at the University of Oregon. And thanks to everyone who's joining us from Washington and across Oregon for this presentation by our friends at the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. Without further ado, I'll let Abby introduce her and her team and get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Abigail Hughes, the Liaison Officer here at JSPS San Francisco office. Thank you so much for having us today. We're very happy to be here, and we want to thank Paolo Daniele, Director of Professional Development and Career Preparation at the University of Oregon, for helping us with this session. We couldn't have done it without you. First off, we're going to have a brief, We're going to have a brief introduction of JSPS and its mission from our Deputy Director, Manabu Ikeda. Afterwards, I will cover the different funding opportunities available from JSPS, focusing on eligibility and application procedures before we start taking questions. So I will turn things over to Manabu Ikeda.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session. My name is Manabu Ikeda. I am the Deputy Director of the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, San Francisco office. I am very happy to have this information session. On behalf of JSPS, I would like to express our special thanks to Paolo Daniele for helping us with planning and promoting this session. First, let me briefly explain our organization. JSPS, which stands for Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, was established in 1932. JSPS is now the largest funding agency for academic research in Japan. Our agency can be described as a Japanese version of NSF, NIH, or SSRC in the US. It is a core funding agency that supports creative and pioneering research from basic to applied fields, and it covers all research fields such as humanities, social sciences, natural sciences, and more. Our headquarters is in Tokyo, Japan. We have 10 branches all over the world. In the United States, we have the Washington, D.C. office on the East Coast and our San Francisco office here on the West Coast. All overseas offices support international collaboration. Now, I will hand it over to Abby.
Thanks, Ikeda-san. Here's the agenda for today. We will mainly talk about our fellowship programs. There are fellowships for postdocs and faculty, which are similar with some key differences that I'll address later. I'll focus mainly on the PhD and postdoc fellowships because that seems to be our audience today. After our presentation, we will have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat or to let us know. I'm so sorry. There we go. First, I will talk about our fellowship programs. This is the basic outline of fellowships to Japan for researchers. We offer several types of fellowships so that you can find the most appropriate and useful one to accommodate every stage of your career. Remember, all of these programs are open to all research fields. Applications are evaluated by those in your field based on the academic value of your research plan. The most important step that is included in each of these fellowships is that you need to make a connection with a host researcher in Japan. Any researcher in Japan, but they will become your host researcher and you will conduct your research with this person in Japan during your fellowship tenure. For pre or postdocs, JSPS provides two different fellowship programs, short-term and standard program. This slide shows the difference between them. For your understanding, pre-docs are those who are within 2 years of graduating with their PhD degree. As for the short term on the left, beginning in 2025, fiscal year 2025, which is April 2025, researchers from ASEAN countries and African countries will be eligible for the short-term program. Eligibility will be explained on the next slide. The period for short-term is 1 to 12 months, and for standard program, it is 12 to 24 months. The terms of award for all of our fellowships include a round-trip air ticket, monthly maintenance allowance, and insurance. If needed, your host researcher can apply for more research support allowance if needed, but some is already included in your stipend. Let's talk about the eligibility requirements for these programs. Candidates for the short-term program must be citizens of North or permanent residents of North America or one of the countries listed here. If you have been researching in one of the eligible countries listed here for more than 3 years or for 3 years or more, you are eligible as well. For postdoctoral fellowships that have start dates beginning in fiscal year 2025, researchers from ASEAN and African countries will also be eligible under a new short-term program. Candidates for standard program have to be citizens of a country that have diplomatic relations with Japan. Both fellowship types are available to people who have received their PhD within the past 6 years. However, for the short-term program, doctoral course students who are scheduled to receive a PhD within 2 years also have eligibility. There are 2 ways to apply for these fellowships: open recruitment and via nominating authority. Please be aware that a pre or postdoc can apply using one or both of these methods. Faculty members can only apply through open recruitment. When applying through open recruitment, your host researcher ultimately submits the application to JSPS through their institution in Japan. Through a nominating authority, applicants will prepare their application with their host researcher and submit it to the nominating authority directly. The nominating authority in the United States is NIH, the National Institute of Health. So please visit the NIH website for further information. For the short-term program, there are 3 recruitment periods in a year. The next application deadline is June 7th, 2024, by 5 p.m. Japan Standard Time. For your information, this is when the host institution that your host researcher is associated with has to submit your application to JSPS in Tokyo. Please check with the host institution to find out when their internal deadline is. It might be a month or more before what you see here. In this round, candidates will receive the selection results around September. Successful fellows can begin their fellowship at any time between January 1st and March 31st, 2025. Here you can also see the upcoming rounds. So if this next one is too soon, don't worry, you can apply to the next one. For the application schedule for the nominating authority, applicants can visit NIH's website and review its guidelines for more information. Usually, both the postdoc short-term program and the standard program has one phase of recruitment in February. Please check the NIH website for the latest information. You can use the QR code here to find it. For the standard program, there are 2 recruitment periods in a year. You should check with the host institution for their deadline. You will want to work for the first recruitment round for fiscal year 2025 with application round close date of August 30th. Now is the perfect time to start working on that, starting with finding a host researcher. Now let's take a look at the invitational short-term and long-term programs. The invitational fellowships are for experienced professors, experienced researchers such as professors, associate, and assistant professors. Other researchers who have 6 or more years of research experience after receiving their PhD can also apply for this fellowship. The short-term invitational program is from 14 to 60 days, and fellows are expected to hold discussions, give lectures, and attend seminars in Japan. The long-term invitational program is from 2 to 10 months, and fellows are expected to conduct joint research with host researchers in Japan during this period. These programs are only via open recruitment. Here you can see the recruitment schedule for invitational fellowships. The next application period is too soon for this round because the internal deadlines for the host institution is probably closed at this time. Normally, short-term invitational program has 2 rounds of recruitment a year, and long-term has 1. August 30th is a good deadline to shoot for. Again, please check with your host institution first. Having looked over eligibility and slots, let's take a look at what you will probably need in an application for a JSPS fellowship. First, completing an application form. In it, you will enter the information that you see here. Think what's normally included in a CV, what your level is like in Japanese, and your research plan for this fellowship. By the way, you're not judged by your Japanese skill. They just want to know what level you are. You will also need a letter of recommendation from your current or previous supervisor. A thesis advisor works well for this. If you are a PH student who will not graduate before arriving in Japan, you will also need to submit an official document from your university department that states that you will finish your PhD within 2 years. Finally, you will want to send this information to your host researcher who will fill out their own application form and submit it all together to JSPS. Next, I would like to introduce the JSPS Summer Program. This fellowship program is for early career researchers, for example, grad students, pre- and postdocs. You do not have to be enrolled in a PhD program for this program. So, master students, this is for you. Let's look at the overview of this program. The period is 2 months in the summer, and JSPS will provide 1 round-trip ticket, maintenance allowance, and research support allowance, as well as overseas travel insurance. Through this program, you can conduct collaborative research and explore Japanese cultural experiences. The eligibility for the summer program is to first be a citizen or permanent resident of the US. Again, researchers who have been here for over 3 years should be eligible. And second, be enrolled in a university graduate program or hold a doctorate received within the past 6 years. Applicants need to complete both of these requirements to be eligible. Let's talk about how to apply to this program. First, you need to find a host researcher, as you do for all of them. And you have to ask them to be your host for the application. Next, you will submit your application documents directly to the JSPS Washington office. Finally, they will select the appropriate candidates and JSPS will decide who should be accepted. The application period hasn't been determined for this year yet. When the open call is launched, we will announce it on our social media pages. For your reference, this is the schedule details from fiscal year 2023. Please note that the dates will change. Before departure to Japan, JSPS Washington office will organize an online pre-orientation with fellows. In addition, after arrival in Japan, JSPS headquarters will organize a 3-day orientation program. About 80 fellows from 6 countries will gather at this orientation. After the orientation, the fellows will move to their host institutions. You will also be able to have a 3-day homestay program during your research period. At the end of the period, fellows will gather again for a research report presentation in Tokyo. The deadline will be updated for this year once we get the information. So, the first step in a successful application is having a host researcher in Japan. As mentioned before, you will need a host researcher to apply for the JSPS fellowship. Research Map, JSPS Researchers Network, and Signee may be helpful in finding researchers working on similar research topics to yours. When reaching out, feel free to mention that you are applying for a JSPS fellowship or that you're interested in applying for it. There's no official way to find a host researcher. Our advice is to leverage your connections and personal networks to find a researcher in Japan who may be a good match. Obviously, looking at papers and faculty listings of Japanese universities can be helpful for those without any connections. Also, keep in mind that your host researcher does not have to be a Japanese national. Like all world-class research institutions, Japanese universities and labs are made up of individuals from all around the world. JSPS alumni communities can also assist by sharing their experience in Japan. If you are interested in connecting with alumni and hearing about their experience, you can contact the JSPS Alumni Association in the US by visiting their website. You can also make the most out of JSPS Fellows Plaza, where they have useful information about alumni and current fellows. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about our other international program. First is the Bilateral Cooperative Program. You can apply for open partnership joint research projects, joint seminars, and joint seminars for inter-university cooperation. JSPS provides funding to Japanese researchers in this program, whereas their counterpart researchers, as in from the US, are expected but not required to secure matching fundings on their own from any funding agencies. For your information, the successful application rate has been about 25% recently. This is our multilateral collaboration program, the Core to Core program. In this program, JSPS funds the Japanese side of multilateral initiatives by universities and research institutions to create consortiums of world-class research hubs. Each program is required to have 2 or more partner countries, and they are required to provide matching funds. JSPS also supports early career researchers in Japan to research abroad. Professors, if you are considering collaborative research with a Japanese university or institution, and you would like to invite your excellent young researchers from Japan to your lab, please consider applying for these 2 programs. The Overseas Research Fellowship program is for postdocs, and the Challenge program for young researchers is for PhD students. However, please note that the application must be made by the doctoral students or postdoc researchers in Japan. Finally, I want to mention this program, the fiscal year 2024 JSPS Research Fellowship for Japanese Biomedical and Behavioral Researchers at NIH. Whew, that's a mouthful. This program is to support biomedical and behavioral research projects undertaken in NIH laboratories by young Japanese postdoctoral researchers. There are 8 slots this year. The duration is 2 years. And please note you must start on January 1st, February 1st, or March 1st, 2025. Applicants are Japanese citizens or permanent residents of Japan. So if you're from the US, this is not from you, but that makes sense. If you have questions or would like more information about fellowships and international collaborative research, please feel free to contact us at our email here. You can also see our websites or read the fellowship pamphlet as well. I'm also going to be giving this slide to Paulo, and hopefully he can help distribute this to the universities that you're from. So you will have this for your own records. And now I want to introduce our special guest all the way virtually from Japan, Assistant Professor Angela Salcedo Quispe. She is from the Division of Anatomy and Cell Biology of the Hard Tissue Faculty of Dentistry, Niigata University. And she received her PhD in Niigata University, but she received her DDS at the National University of San Marcos. And she was a 2020 JSPS postdoctoral fellow. And she actually had to cut her time short to become an assistant professor, and we're very proud of her. So I wanted to invite Angela to speak a little bit to us today about her experience as a JSPS fellow. Angela, if you could come talk to us, that would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me or not?
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, fine. So thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. I'm very glad to help with this part of the talk, and good afternoon to everybody. Yes, as you mentioned, I was chosen as a fellow in the 2020 second call, I guess. My coming to Japan was delayed because of the pandemic, and I finally arrived in 2021. Like, it has been 3 years so far. It's going to be 3 years, and I can't believe how fast the time goes. I arrived in May, and yeah, due to the chance to become assistant professor, I cut the fellowship that was originally scheduled to last 2 years into only 1 year or less than 1 year. Because of the position I got, it started from March 1st in 2022. So during the period I was JSPS fellow, so I cannot say more than everything was positive for me. So in my case, I chose the lab where I studied the PhD course. So I would like to say that I first was Mombuka Gakusho. So I don't know if the attendants here are familiar. So with the scholarships that are offered by Japanese government. So I was first PhD student under this program. So I knew somehow who was who were the researchers that I wanted to meet after my PhD if I had a chance. So finally, due to the pandemics, I took the decision to apply for a JSPS fellowship. It was my last chance actually to apply because we have a limit 6 years after graduation. And I'm very grateful my project or our project in my division was chosen. And this is the same division when I studied. So things were much more easy. But I think that contacting researchers through the directory of researchers that are available, JREC or Research Map, is a very good choice. So regardless the place, I think the applicant should consider the topic, the research area. Sometimes major cities or laboratories in major universities may not have the specific topic, and you can find, like in my case, the topic I wanted to research is in Niigata University, which is a public university, is well ranked, but it's not in that laboratory is not located in Tokyo or Osaka or Kyoto. But anyway, the experience of being a JSPS fellow is overall very positive. We have a specific budget for ourselves that has to be applied by our supervisor. And also we have the freedom to decide our schedule, research activities, and basically carry out our project by ourselves. We have the laboratory ready for us, and we have just to follow what we schedule in our study plan. So that's a very important part for the application, to describe what is going to be the sequential steps into your desired research period. So in my case, I scheduled for 2 years, and my project was really ambitious, but I had to cut it, and I got preliminary results that I finally continue when I became assistant professor. And these results are going to be published soon. Were already presented in several meetings. Being a GSPS fellow is not only positive for our academic background, but also I think in our personal daily life, we can experience much more than being a tourist in Japan. Of course, we have to immerse ourselves into the academic, cultural, and social backgrounds in wherever we are. So in my case, being in what it could be the countryside of Japan, it's very interesting, at least for me. I like Japanese culture. I'm interested to know more about that. And it is sometimes challenging because not everybody speaks English in this prefecture as it could be in Tokyo or in other major cities. But in any case, I think I consider everything has been positive. I could learn much more. I could understand how the academia works. So that's very interesting. So as a researcher that comes from another, I've been working in the different countries. So now I am part of Japanese academia, and it's quite different, but at the same time, you find yourself fitting into this system. Once you become a fellow, you understand how things work. You're a postdoc, and then the transition, if you can make it to an assistant professor, even if you're tenure or especially appointed, is very positive. So what else I can say? Mm, from the perspective of funding, so a GSPS fellow has the right to choose to apply for this specific funding that is provided. Also, the professor who is hosting you can share part of the budget of the different projects, or you don't need to involve only in your own project, which is your main. But if you have another choices, so of course the professors or any other lab members will welcome you to help. So that increases your chances to get more co-authorships. So I don't know if there is any other question or any other topic that you would like Abby to share. So I'm happy to do so. So I'm running out of ideas now. So I think I already covered the funding and life in Japan. Life in Japan is overall very exciting. So if you really like Japan and if you like research, so this is a good chance to combine both of the best of both.
Angie, thank you so much. I can't express how grateful I am for you coming. Everyone, it is 5:30 in the morning in Japan right now where Angie is. So thank you so much for coming to speak to us. If we're gonna have questions in a minute, so I'll hold on to you while I have you, and if they have any questions for you, we'll use that. I think what you covered was wonderful. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So it's always a pleasure to help to JSPS. And I'm very grateful with Japan for the opportunities gave me so far.
She's the best. I didn't tell her to say that, by the way. Everything she has said has been completely of her own volition and not
Yes.
my encouragement.
Of course, of course.
So we can move on just a little bit. So if you'd like, you can follow us on our social media pages, and this is the sort of we post about the information sessions that we have. We have LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and Instagram. So please give us a follow to figure out what we're doing next. And we thank you for your time with us today. So now is the perfect time to ask us any questions if you have any. You can raise your hand virtually. You can put it in the chat. You can send me a message separately. You can feel comfortable. I don't bite.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How long does it usually take for someone between the application time and when they hear back? More or
Right.
less.
So
I know it probably depends by program, but more or
right.
less.
So maybe a few months. It depends on which application period you're applying for. But so if we're doing postdocs, like a postdoc program, we can actually go back and look at it. But generally speaking, I think it's 2 or maybe 3 or 4 months in between application period and acceptance notice. That's invitational fellows. That's a bit shorter time, but so standard and then right. So maybe 3 or 4 months, generally speaking, before you hear back about whether or not you got in, and then a couple of months for after that is when you can schedule your arrival time.
Thank you. And then another question a student forwarded me. Would it help with the process of acceptance if they already have a contact at a university in Japan?
Yeah, that would make it faster because then you already have a host researcher and you can get to work on applying together. So the most important first step is the host researcher. So if you already have a contact, that's perfect. Well, if there aren't any more questions, oh, okay, perfect. What is the best way to contact for general questions such as email? Okay, I can go to the slide that the email was on, but yes, I can also just put it in the chat. Our email address is sfofellowship@jsps.go.jp. I'm just going to go to the slide just to make sure that I put the right thing. Perfect, yeah. If you have any questions at all, you're more than welcome to email us for sure. And we would be happy to answer your emails. But I don't want to keep you because I'm sure you have classes and homework to attend to and research. But thank you so much for today.
Thank you very much, Abby and team. And thanks everyone for attending today. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Thank you so much.